Welcome to Miss Macabre, a place where the ordinary world ends and the shadows begin. Here, we walk through forgotten houses, trace the whispers of the dead, and uncover the stories you were never meant to hear. This story comes from one of our subscribers in Bangalore, India. In the heart of Bangalore's bustling St. Mark's Road, there once stood a crumbling mansion most people would tend to avoid. Locals called it the Terra Verra Mansion, named after the two sisters who once lived there. And the night one of their lives ended in tragedy. Some say you can still hear their cries when the sun goes down. Tonight we'll step into the shadows of that house and uncover what happens when you try to face its haunted past. Decades ago, during the British Raj, the mansion belonged to an Anglo-Indian family of wealth and status. After their parents died, two sisters remained in the house. Neighbors described them as reclusive, rarely seen outside. Once a colonial guest house, it soon became the eerie residence of two elderly sisters, Vera and Dolce Vaz. Rumors spread. Some said they were mentally unstable. Others claimed they practiced seances to contact their dead parents. One person wrote that Terra Verra on St. Mark's Road had been a pretty fancy hotel. The Vaz family, who ran it, had just come to Bangalore, and it was considered posh to go there and take an English tea with cucumber sandwiches and scones. Later, when we came to live in Bangalore, which was several decades later, and I saw the decaying house as I passed it, to go for my German classes to Max Muller on Museum Road, it scared me. It was extremely run down and had a Hillman Minx car in the portico. The textured walls were crumbling, but behind the grime one could tell that it was beautiful once upon a time. The place was overgrown and no one seemed to live there. It was damaged by felons and criminals, and the windows seemed broken and in terrible condition. And the massive rain trees that grew on the pavement could have told us tales about the house, which could have filled a book. In 2002, tragedy struck when Dolce was brutally murdered by an unknown assailant, her body buried on the premises. Following her sister's death, Vera vacated the mansion, leaving behind a trove of valuables, including a vintage car and antique furniture. The house was abandoned, but the stories of its haunting persisted. Visitors and locals alike reported unsettling phenomena: half-filled wine bottles left untouched, crosses and inverted crucifixes adorning the walls, and a haunting statue that seemed to watch over the desolate rooms. The air was thick with an unnatural chill, and the faint, ghostly strains of a piano echoed through the halls, despite the mansion being long deserted. Some claimed to have seen apparitions of Dolce wandering the corridors where she met her untimely end. Dolce was buried in the house, and Vera was asked to move to a safer location by the police. The case remains unsolved to this day, said the report. This was the era when Bangalore was rocked by several murders of old and infirm residents who lived alone in their large bungalows. The property passed through relatives, but every attempt to rent it out ended in strange disturbances. Tenants complained of footsteps pacing the halls at night. Lights flickered even when the electricity was cut, and every dog that entered the house barked frantically at the staircase, refusing to climb it. By the 2000s, the mansion was abandoned completely. Trees grew wild, windows shattered, and graffiti marked the walls. But the legend remained. Locals called it Bangalore's most haunted house. Back in the early 2000s, a group of college students decided to explore the mansion at night for thrills. They brought a phone camera, flashlights, and a lot of bravado. At first, it felt like an adventure: dusty corridors, cobwebs, and old furniture covered in sheets. But then the atmosphere shifted. In the dining hall, the long wooden table was still set, plates covered in dust, but one teacup was clean, as if it had just been used. Then came the smell: rotting flowers, the kind you leave on a grave. They followed the sound of soft crying upstairs. At the landing, one girl's phone vibrated, but when she looked, the screen showed an unfamiliar number, sending a single message over and over: "Do not leave." Her phone died instantly after. As they turned a corner, the group found a door wide open. Inside, two rocking chairs faced each other, slowly swaying back and forth. though the air in the room was perfectly still. On the wall behind them, someone had scratched in large letters, "We're still here." Suddenly, the chairs stopped moving, and then both started rocking violently, slamming against the floor, as if invisible hands were forcing them. That's when the students panicked and ran. They scrambled down the stairs, but as they reached the exit, the front door slammed shut with a deafening crack. No matter how hard they pulled, it wouldn't budge. The crying grew louder, not just one voice now, but two women weeping in unison, echoing through the halls. One boy turned around and froze. At the far end of the corridor, the shadows seemed to shift. Two long, thin silhouettes stretched across the wall. Though there was nothing there to cast them, the crying stopped. And in the silence, the faint sound of nails scratching along the walls began to creep closer. In sheer desperation, the group smashed a side window and leapt out into the street, cutting themselves on glass. They didn't stop running until they reached the main road, trembling and bloodied. When they checked the footage later, most of it was static. But one clip remained. The camera panned across the hallway for just a second, and in the background on the far wall were two faint handprints, smeared in something dark. And underneath the static, the audio caught something no one wanted to hear again. Low, guttural growls. Not human, not animal, just wrong. After that night, strange things began happening to the students. One kept waking at 3:15 a.m. to the sound of knocking at her door. Another swore he saw two women reflected in his mirror whenever he brushed his teeth. And one never spoke about it again, but friends say he moved out of Bangalore altogether, refusing to ever set foot on St. Mark's Road again. The mansion still stood tall until the year 2014. The city moved around it, traffic buzzed, life rushing forward. But the house waited. In 2014, the mansion was demolished, but the legacy of its hauntings endures. Passers-by still speak of an oppressive presence lingering on the site, and the tales of Terra Verra continue to send shivers down the spine of anyone who dares to listen. But here's the part no one ever talks about. Weeks after the students' visit, a neighbor swore he saw lights flickering inside the abandoned house. Curious, he pulled out his phone to record, but when he zoomed in, the light wasn't from a bulb, it was from candles. And standing at the window were two women, each holding a candle under their chin, their faces glowing. As he kept filming, the candles suddenly went out, and in the darkness, the camera caught something else. The faint rumble of that same unearthly growl carrying through the night. So tell me, if you were dared to step into Bangalore's most haunted property site, would you go inside? Or would you be wise enough to stay far away? If you step this far, you're already part of our circle. Stay close. Listen carefully. Because the night is never silent, neither are we. Tonight, we traveled to Bangalore, India, and explored the Terra Verra Mansion. Because this city holds more haunted secrets than you can possibly imagine. To dive deeper into the shadows, with real terrifying stories, follow and subscribe to Miss Macabre. Remember, she knows what you fear.